Minion in! Guys, I got so much positive feedback from my last tips and trick guide, which, if you haven't seen it, you can click on this card. And I can't say this enough. Thank you all so much for your likes and your views and your support. This community is amazing. I did promise I would give you more pro tips as soon as I've discovered or learned about them, so without further ado, let's pimp our gameplay.
Pip, pip. Ha! Wink.
People die in boss fights. It's okay, it happens to all of us. When you die, you hope another player will help you back up. Not only is this good etiquette and combat strategy, but it can also advance your bless pass. If you die more than twice, don't expect others to res you. It takes too long and puts people trying to help you at risk. Along the same lines, crawl away from bosses and out of harm's way so others can res you without risk of harm to themselves. Don't kill steal from grinding groups. It halves their XP and also yours. Instead, invite them to a party or ask to be invited. To invite, interact with someone directly by targeting them and holding the left menu button, but hardly anyone stands still, so open your map and tab right until you get to the party and type in their names manually. But let's be realistic. If they refuse your party invites or do not respond when you ask to join, things become fair game. You have just as much right to resources and XP as any other player. You tried to be cooperative, that's all anyone can expect. Bosses above your gear score, maybe don't engage. When you join the fight, their HP goes up, as it does for every player who engages, making the fight harder for everyone. You also get a significant XP cut for killing above your level, as well as damage reduction. This is more of a guideline than a rule. Chances are some of the people fighting the boss are OP. If you see high levels, you're safe to join in towards the end. The gear rewards from bosses outside of your level range are worth it more often than not, as there are no level restrictions on items. If it looks like a struggle or an even fight, don't be a dick. Walk away. When fighting a tough ranged enemy, get higher ground. Much like some of your skills can't target elevated targets, neither can theirs. It's easily discovered that you can start doing arena dungeons at level 5. But you know what's not so obvious? If you scroll down on the list, you get more dungeon categories, with more dungeons you can start doing as early as level 20. Man, did I feel stupid when I finally found those. Let's define being good at something. It means doing something well or succeeding at an activity. Doing world bosses is a cooperative activity. By definition, if you are cooperating with the other players, you are succeeding. You are doing well. If you are PKing other players engaged in world bosses, you are failing at the activity. You're not good at this game. Maybe go play something more your speed like Dota or PUBG. Suggestion to devs, you could easily attach a bool variable to players that returns true when engaged in a world boss fight or recovering from one. Anyone PKing a player with this value being true should get a much heavier penalty than just a little notoriety. When deciding which combo to use, there is more to it than damage output. Now, I know it sounds like I'm contradicting some other guides you may have seen or read, but the ones that told you to read your combo descriptions to figure out which hits the hardest gave you good advice. It was just incomplete. Here's a slightly more advanced version of that tip. Learn your combos and choose one based on your situation. For example, the Crusader's Solar Strike and Sunrise Strike do a ton of damage. They also leave you open to attack. If you don't have aggro, the basic sword combo might be your best bet, but if you do, using Solar Flare repeatedly will get you killed. Instead, focus on combos that may not have the damage output, but keep your enemy off balance to prevent them from hitting you. How many enemies you're engaged with also matters. You want to hit as many of them as possible, so use combos with an AoE effect. For single opponents, use focus strikes and off-balancing attacks. Also consider the damage per second the entire combo does and the time required to complete it. Remember, the guy who hits the hardest isn't necessarily the guy who wins. 9 out of 10 times, tactics beats brute force. Gear score matters. By now we all know this, but it isn't everything. To really optimize your character, have a look at the effects on the items. A perfect example is my Crusader in this clip. Let's get into his pants, shall we? The blue veteran's leg armor he is wearing has a defense of 630 and a gear score of 81, with the effect that he heals faster when near a soul pyre. This gladiator leg armor is clearly inferior in defense and gear score, but look, wearing it increases his defense by 359. Let's do some math. Because his defense goes down by 218 if he puts these on, but then goes back up by 359, that's an increase of 141 defense. The gear score is lower because he'd be switching from blue gear to green, but sometimes you have to take a step back in order to advance. Gear effects are an often overlooked but crucial components. Take the gear score hit and upgrade the lower tier gear, and you'll come out stronger than ever. This might be the most pro tip ever, and opinions on it will differ wildly, but please keep in mind that I mean all due respect. I have kids who sometimes get frustrated with games where the mechanics don't agree with them. This makes them complain and get angry, and I'll tell them a game is supposed to bring you joy. If it doesn't, it's not for you. Put it down, play something else, go outside. I know many of you consider the open world PvP system in Bless Unleashed to be broken, because the mechanics don't agree with you or you don't agree with them. There are literally thousands of other games out there. Don't make yourself miserable. We all deserve to be happy. Walk away. Be happy. This one is more of a suggestion or friendly advice than pro tip. There's no option to mute other players, so if you're standing around a soul pyre loudly mouth-breathing into your mic, the only option is to block your gamertag completely. Eventually, you're going to run out of people who can hear you or read your chat. Maybe turn your mic off before you start ingesting it. Finally, if you're in an arena or dungeon boss fight and your party dies, don't self-res, because chances are the boss will reset anyway and you've just wasted a resurrection scroll or star seeds. And you don't know what the other members of your party are planning. If you wipe, res at a soul pyre, regroup, and try again. This has been more tips and tricks. I hope they help make your experience in Bless Unleashed even more enjoyable. Minion out.